All right, buckle up, everyone, because we're diving deep into Ganesh Housing's latest quarter. And let me tell you, it's a fascinating story.
Oh, yeah, we've got their annual report, some interesting industry news, and we're going to piece it all together.
Yeah, we're going beyond just the numbers.
Hmm.
We really want to understand what's going on behind the scenes.
Their strategy, how they're positioned in the market,
Yeah,
and any surprises they might have up their sleeve.
exactly. And speaking of surprises, the first thing that jumped out at me was all this buzz about Ahmedabad.
Mm.
The report paints this picture of like a city on the verge of a real estate boom.
Right.
There's all this new infrastructure,
Yeah.
the third outer ring road,
Yeah.
metro expansion. They're even bidding for major sporting events. It's like they're going all in.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it. All these developments are making Ahmedabad super attractive for businesses, residents, investors, you name it.
Right, so it's not just like a temporary hype.
Mm.
There's real substance behind this growth.
Oh, absolutely. Improved infrastructure attracts companies, more jobs, growing population, and all those people need places to live, right?
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction that's fueling this demand for housing. And it's not just organic growth either.
Yeah, the report mentioned these government initiatives too.
The AMRUT and Smart Cities mission.
Right, pumping resources into making cities more livable and appealing, especially to residents. And, well, that just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, like the government is setting the stage for this real estate boom, and companies like Ganesh Housing, they're in the perfect position to capitalize on it.
Oh, for sure.
Now, here's what I found really interesting. Ganesh Housing isn't just building any old apartments. They're really emphasizing quality, the environment, innovation.
Right, they're trying to stand out.
They even talk about integrating smart home technology into their projects. It's like they're targeting a specific buyer who wants that modern, tech-savvy lifestyle.
Yeah, it seems like a smart strategy to me. By going for a niche market, they can maybe charge a premium. And build a loyal customer base.
Mhm.
People who specifically seek out their projects because they know what they're
Like
getting.
a brand, a reputation.
Exactly. If you want a high-tech home in Ahmedabad, you think Ganesh Housing. That's what they're going for.
Okay, so we've got this booming market, a company with a clear vision, but let's talk numbers. Ganesh Housing is reporting some strong revenue growth this quarter.
Hmm.
They're sitting on a net cash position of over 220 million.
Wow.
And the ratios are all looking good. Debtor turnover, inventory turnover, interest coverage, they're all improving.
That's really important. These ratios tell us a lot about a company's financial health. Like, high debtor turnover means they're collecting payments quickly.
Because they're running a tight ship.
Yeah, efficient operations and good inventory turnover. Well, that means they're not sitting on unsold properties for too long.
Making sales, keeping things moving.
Exactly. And then there's the interest coverage ratio. They can handle their debt, no problem.
So on the surface, it all looks pretty promising, right? But we need to understand what's driving these positive results.
Yeah, is this growth sustainable? Are they truly operating that efficiently? We need to dig a bit deeper to get the full picture.
Exactly, because sometimes, the numbers only tell part of the story.
Absolutely. It's the story behind the numbers that really matters.
And speaking of stories, the report also gives us some insights into the people running the show. Sheikh Harji Patel, the managing director and CEO, has been reappointed for another 5 years.
Mm.
That's got to be a sign of confidence from the board.
Oh, definitely. It would be interesting to look into his track record, see how his leadership has shaped the company.
Has he been the driving force behind these positive results? Something to consider.
Yeah.
And there's also mention of this related party transaction with Mahavir Voltage Complex, a group company.
Oh, interesting.
I'm curious about what that means, what implications it might have.
Well, related party transactions, they can be a bit tricky sometimes. Sometimes it's just streamlining operations, benefiting both parties.
Mhm.
But, sometimes it raises questions about transparency, potential conflicts of interest. We got to look into the specifics of this one, consider all the angles.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and dive into the details of this recent quarter. The report highlights some key achievements. They completed their Malabar Exotica project ahead of schedule,
Impressive.
and they launched this new project called Malabar Retreat. So they're not just talking, they're actually getting things done.
Yeah, completing a project ahead of schedule that's not easy in real estate shows they're efficient. And launching a new project, well, that shows they're confident about the market.
They're not afraid to invest in future growth.
Exactly.
But there's one little detail that caught my eye.
Hmm.
The report mentions some shares being transferred to the Investor Education and Protection Fund, the IEPF,
Oh, right.
because of unclaimed dividends.
Hmm.
What's that all about?
It's interesting, isn't it? Could be a simple thing, investors losing track of their holdings, maybe forgetting to update their contact info.
Right.
But it could also mean some shareholders aren't that engaged. It's something to keep an eye on.
So to recap, we've got a company operating in this rapidly growing market.
Yeah,
They seem to have a strong financial foundation and a leadership team that knows what they're doing.
seems that way.
But to really get the complete picture, we need to dig deeper into the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. We need to understand the competition, potential risks, how Ganesh Housing compares to its rivals. Only then can we truly assess their long-term prospects.
Exactly. So let's do that. Let's dive into that industry landscape.
All right, so the report actually highlights this interesting trend, the rise of shop-cum-office spaces.
SKOs, right. I've heard of those.
Yeah, exactly. It's like reshaping commercial real estate, blending retail and office space into one.
So it's kind of a hybrid model, huh?
Mm.
Adapting to how we work and shop these days. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like catering to those businesses that want both visibility, storefront presence, and also the functionality of office space.
Yeah.
And they also talk about tier 2 cities, like becoming real hotspots for residential development.
So maybe not everyone wants to live in those megacities anymore.
Right. Government incentives, the allure of a different pace of life, it's driving this trend.
Yeah, maybe better affordability, quality of life, new opportunities outside those big cities.
Yeah.
It's appealing to more and more people, I think.
Exactly. And Ahmedabad, it's a prominent tier 2 city, right? So it's in a great spot.
Yeah, perfectly positioned to ride this wave.
Yeah.
The report dives deeper into Ahmedabad specifically, too. It talks about the Northern Corridor, anchored by Gift City,
Right.
a major driver of property sales there.
Well, yeah, Gift City, with its focus on finance and tech, it's attracting a lot of investment, and that creates this ripple effect. So you've got all this demand for office space there, and naturally people want to live closer to where they work, right?
Makes total sense. One sector's growth fuels another. And Ahmedabad in general seems to be on this really impressive growth trajectory.
It does. The report mentions the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation's revenue, their capital expenditure. It's all increasing. Big investments in infrastructure projects.
They're putting their money where their mouth is, it sounds like.
Yeah, it shows a commitment to developing the city, fostering that, business-friendly environment. And for a company like Ganesh Housing, that's a really positive sign.
A stable and supportive ecosystem for their projects. It all ties together.
Yeah, it does. And even the Asian Development Bank approved a major loan for Ahmedabad, specifically for developing those peri-urban regions.
Interesting.
That's a strategic move, improving quality of life, economic prospects, and that can have a huge impact on the real estate market in those areas too.
Potentially opening up even more opportunities for developers like Ganesh Housing.
Exactly. They're not just building homes, they're betting on the future of the city.
So let's zoom in on Ganesh Housing's business model now. They're clearly focused on residential and commercial real estate development, but with that emphasis on quality and delivering projects on time.
Yeah, and if you look at their project updates, it gives you a sense of their execution capabilities. Completing Malabar Exotica ahead of schedule, that shows commitment.
They're walking the walk.
Yeah, and launching Malabar Retreat, that shows confidence in the market that they know what customers want.
They're tapped into those evolving preferences. And that whole smart home technology thing, that really stands out to me.
Yeah, it's a smart move. They're not just selling bricks and mortar, they're selling a lifestyle.
Catering to a specific need.
Right, they can charge a premium for that and build that loyal customer base. Okay, time to crunch some numbers, I think.
All right, let's do it. We touched on their financials earlier, but let's go deeper. Their revenue from land and construction activities, it's jumped significantly year over year.
Yeah, well, that makes sense given those positive industry trends and Ahmedabad's growth. They're capturing market share and converting those projects into revenue, and their balance sheet is solid. Strong cash position, low debt-to-equity ratio.
That's a good sign, right?
Oh, yeah. Financially stable, prudent management. These are the things investors look for. It means they have flexibility, they can weather any storms, and pounce on new opportunities.
They're thriving, not just surviving.
Exactly. And they're putting a lot of that capital towards land advances, acquiring land for future projects.
So they're confident about long-term growth. They're already looking ahead.
Yeah. Land banking, classic real estate strategy, secure those prime locations, for future success. But we have to acknowledge there are risks. Regulations, market shifts, unforeseen events, it can all impact the value of that land.
Real estate, it's cyclical.
Always.
Always risks involved.
But let's shift focus to the people leading Ganesh Housing, their promoters and management team. Sure. The report gives us some details about Shekhar G. Patel, the managing director and CEO. 5-year reappointment. I mean, that says a lot about his leadership,
The board trusts him.
clearly. And he's also a shareholder.
Interesting. So his interests are aligned with the company's performance.
Exactly. He's incentivized to drive value for all stakeholders.
That's a positive sign, right, for potential investors?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It shows he's invested in the company's success. The report also mentions changes in stakeholders' holdings, which, can be a good indicator of investor sentiment. Are they increasing their stake? Are new investors coming in? Those shifts can tell us a lot about the confidence in the company's direction.
Yeah, like a window into the dynamics at play.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about how Ganesh Housing is allocating their capital and how they're valuing their projects.
Yeah, that's key to understanding their financial strategy, their long-term vision.
So they're putting their money to work, that's for sure. The report shows a big chunk of their capital is going towards land acquisition and project development.
Well, that's to be expected, right? It's a capital-intensive industry. If you're a company focused on expanding your real estate portfolio, you got to invest in land, you got to invest in construction. It's the foundation.
Makes sense. But acquiring land is just one piece of the puzzle. How do they actually figure out the value of their projects? What's their method?
Valuing real estate projects is a beast, let me tell you. So many factors to consider, location, market conditions, projected cash flows. But the report says they're bringing in external valuers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to assess the net realizable value, the NRV of their project.
Okay, so they're not just relying on internal estimates, they're getting expert opinions.
Right, exactly. Transparency, accuracy, that's what they're aiming for. They want to present a realistic picture of their assets.
That's a good sign, for sure. Shows they're committed to doing things the right way.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember valuations are still estimates. There's always a degree of subjectivity, And the market, it's always changing.
Right. No crystal ball. Things can shift quickly. So let's talk about the recent quarter's performance. What were the key highlights that stood out to you?
Well, besides the project completions and new launches we talked about earlier, their financials are looking strong. Solid revenue growth, that strong cash position is continuing. And their profitability metrics, those are trending upwards too. Effective cost management, healthy margins, all good signs.
It's all adding up now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The positive industry trends, Ahmedabad's growth, Ganesh Housing's efficiency, their smart focus on that niche market. Sounds like they've got a winning formula.
They do seem to be hitting their stride, capitalizing on opportunities, executing their plans. But, we can't forget about that little detail. Those shares transferred to the IEPF.
Because of the unclaimed dividends.
Right. I mean, it's not a red flag necessarily, but it does make you wonder about investor engagement, communication, maybe something they could improve on.
Yeah, definitely. Clear communication with shareholders. It's so important for building trust.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's wrap this up. What's the final verdict? What have we learned from our deep dive into Ganesh Housing's recent quarter?
Well, all signs point to a company on the rise. Operating in a favorable market, they're financially strong, executing their strategy effectively. That focus on innovation, catering to that specific market, it's paying off.
It really seems like it. But we have to remember, real estate, it's cyclical. Markets go up, markets go down, things change. There are always challenges.
Very true. And that actually brings us to a final thought for our listeners. Ganesh Housing, they're riding this wave of growth in Ahmedabad. But what happens if that wave crashes? How adaptable are they? Can they handle those market shifts? Can they maintain this momentum even if things change?
That's the million-dollar question. Ganesh Housing is looking great right now, but a healthy dose of skepticism and thorough research, those are always key before making any investment decisions.
Always. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep. The world of business, it's full of stories. You just got to know where to look.